live in just a second. Yep, exactly at 5.
Exactly at 5. Okay, we're gonna be live.
Okay,
All right, so.
have we heard from all of them? Well, Mary can read us into a closed session, I can do it. Or you can lead us to it. Let me see if I remember how to do this. She's been there before, isn't she?
Good evening. It's 5 o'clock, and this is our regular meeting of the Talbot County Board of Education. We do have a quorum, and we will be going into closed session to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom we have jurisdiction, or any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals. To consult with counsel to obtain legal advice on a legal matter, to consult with staff, consultants, or other individuals about pending or potential litigation. So do I have a motion to go into closed session?
I make a motion that we go into closed session.
All those in favor? We'll be going to closed session.
Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to the Talbot County Board of Education. This is Wednesday, October 16th, 2024, our regular meeting. As you can see, we have a quorum in attendance this evening, so we are all set to go. And if everybody could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, that would be great. Before I move ahead, we have a new system and the paperwork is a little different than it usually looks, so forgive me if I stumble over where we are, where we're supposed to be. We will get there hopefully by next month. Still trying to figure it all out. Appreciate your patience. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from our regular board meeting which was September 18th?
I make a motion to approve our board minutes from our September 18th meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next we have two different things. Recognition of the public. Start with public comment. Yes, starting with public comment. And nobody signed up tonight, but sir, would you like to make public comment? Yes, I would. Okay, give me 1 second while I find my official thing that I'm supposed to read. Sorry, this is the technical delay I was speaking of. I just have to find our official thing that I have to read to you. I only have half of it right here. My apologies.
We're not on a point system.
Thank you. Thank you, Candace. You're welcome. During citizen participation, citizens are welcome to make statements to the board regarding a recent or current agenda item or matter of general policy over which the board has authority. The board does not engage in discussion with citizens during the board meetings, but will, if appropriate, direct the superintendent to provide a response or assistance to the citizens. Board meetings are streamed live and recorded. This can be found on the Talbot County Public Schools website at www.tcpsk12.md.us. The Talbot County Board of Education does not discriminate on the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, disability, age, or religion in its programs and activities and provides equal access to all designated youth groups. Thank you. Okay. Please share with us what you have to say this evening. If you are speaking as an individual, you have 3 minutes and we will set a timer for you.
Good evening, welcome. Terrence Bernard, Easton resident. My comment is to compliment the band. I attended the 911 memorial in Easton, and I was very, very honored to hear the band playing there. And I'd like to commend the band leader, you could say instructor or leader, but it came across really well. Everyone worked together in unison, and that's what I'd like for the board here to recall You know, there's a lot of times they talk about sports and this and scholastics and everything. That's important and all well, but there's some people that can build confidence and self-esteem from music. You hand them an instrument, you know, it makes music, you know, let them be instructed on how to use it. There's ownership because they have to take care of it. If they don't take care of it, it's not going to play properly for them. So it's really important. Really builds a lot of self-esteem in an individual. And they get to work together as a team. If you have everyone on flutes or horns, you know, they help one another, you know, just kind of gravitate towards one another. They're not isolated. And the more they practice, the better they'll become. They get to use their eyes to read music, the ears to listen to the tones, where they can improve. They can ask another friend or the instructor how to improve off of that. And then the cognitive part is coming to bring them all together. You're seeing it, you're moving your fingers, depending on the instrument, and you're listening to the tones, and you have 30 people out there, and you want them to sound like one and play a beautiful song. I'm gonna pass off these teachers or these pictures to the superintendent of what I took, and I have one you can't see from there, but it's a group shot. And then I have the individuals in a row. There's a lot of flutes in here. And if the band instructor or band leader can put them in the classroom when they have them, you know, that's good feeling. And they did a great job, so we don't want to forget about the music. I took 4 years in grade school, and I was percussion, snare drum, bass, and cymbals. And it was a lot. And then I went into auto mechanics, so you put 2 and 2 together. And then I went into food manufacturing plants for 30 years, working on machinery. So this is just a step of building their confidence and their skill level. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to make a comment this evening? Okay. Was there anything else for recognition of the public tonight, Dr. P? Okay. Next up, we have our student board member reports, starting with Bryn from St. Michael's. And Bryn, you can step up to the podium and click through from there.
Okay, welcome everyone. So what's up, St. Michael's Middle High School? So what's on the menu tonight? First, there will be sports, assemblies, projects, Spirit Week, and then our Super Saints of the past 2 months. So first, we'll have Pink Night. On October 3rd, the St. Michael's field hockey team hosted their annual Pink Game in honor of cancer survivor Coach Karen Hopkins. The team raised over $1,200 to go towards cancer research. Players and audience were all encouraged to wear pink. We went super all out. We unfortunately did not win. It was against Kent Island, but it was a really good game, and it's probably one of the biggest attendances that we have had so far this year, and it was overall really fun. Next on sports, on the same night, October 3rd, the St. Michael's Middle High School varsity soccer team hosted a recognition night for the 50th anniversary of the state championship soccer game. So alumni of the championship team were invited back to St. Michael's soccer field to be recognized. They brought them all out onto the field, and we did you would call them out, and they would walk through the little archway, and it was just a good way to recognize everybody. Then golf. The St. Michael's Middle High School golf team had a great season and has taken the lead over several matches, including over Kent Island and Queen Anne's. They also recently placed third at the tournament at the Hyatt in Cambridge, Maryland. And I turned this in before this happened, but yesterday 2 of our senior girls, Lexi and Lola, have made it to the state championship, so they qualified. Next, for assemblies, we had Alex Boyer from America's Got Talent come visit us. The assembly was on mental health and recognizing one's self-worth. It was a really great time. It was super great energy, and all the kids were super engaged and involved. Then we have our art project. So in 2011, the students of St. Michael's Middle High School, alongside artist Sue Stockman, created an eco-friendly space for outdoor learning and the creation of art. Since then, since that was all the way back in 2011, the place has kind of deteriorated some, but last fall, the students wrote a grant proposal to the TCPS Educational Foundation to rehabilitate the area, and the funds were awarded. So we are greatly appreciative of the support of the Education Foundation for helping fund this project and for our beautiful new outdoor learning space. So if you see on the first picture, that's like the original, and then the second is what it is now. I personally take art, and before it was super hard to like go outside and do your artwork because you just could never find like a flat surface, but now it's such a great place to go out, and especially on these last few days of it being kind of warm, it's been super enjoyable. So this week is Homecoming Spirit Week. So Homecoming Spirit Week is being hosted this week, October 14th to October 19th. The Spirit Days are, Monday was Disco and Neon Day, Tuesday was Jersey Day, Wednesday, today was Western Day, Thursday is USA and Maryland Day, and then Friday is Saints Pride, where we will have our pep rally, and then Saturday we will be hosting our dance. Then, finally, for our Super Saints of the Month, we had a lot of Super Saints this month, and so they start in 8th grade. We had Taraya Strickland, Ava Adams, Hugo Hernandez. For 7th grade, there was Falcom Schemer, Connor Fenzel, Lily Greenone, and Kylie Sadler. And then for 6th grade, I can't see that, no, Emma Sadler, Audrey Tyler, sorry, I can't see it from over there. Oh, Davian Foster and Addison, her name got cut off. For sophomores, we have Mac Hudson, Christopher Ramirez Morales, and then for freshmen, we have Donnie Ross, Lily Tyler, Micah Joseph, Hannah Willis, and Shayla Frank. And that is a wrap for this month.
Thank you, Brian. Next up is Gabriella with Easton High School.
Okay. Hi. Okay, this is like the September-October update for Easton High School. Our students have been super involved in our community lately, especially with the recent hurricane in the south. I've seen so much participation. We had a drive where we collected food and other items that went directly down to those affected from the hurricane, and it was really awesome just to see how much our staff and students participated. And right there is actually a picture of a lot of the items that we donated and then they took down. And also we had a group of students volunteer to clean up trash at the Blackwater Wildlife Refuge on National Public Lands Day. And then homecoming, we just concluded our homecoming week last week. This is known as like the best week of the year, so we did have our homecoming themes, and we have a few pictures of our students participating. So we have Hawaiian Day, and then the middle picture we have our seniors dressed as senior citizens. Each grade did a different age, so we had freshmen dressed as babies, and then all the way up to seniors. And then we did also have a celebrity day, which everyone loved. We had Bruno Mars and another celebrity, I'm not sure, all the way over there. And then more homecoming fun, just because homecoming is, I think, the best time of the year. So our homecoming theme was Under the Lanterns. It was Tangled inspired. We had our annual Friday homecoming pep rally. This happens every Friday before homecoming, and it's my favorite day of the year. We all go to school, and then we go to the pep rally, which has student and staff involvement. And then right from there, we go to the parade that happens in downtown Easton, and then we all attend the Friday night football game and then Saturday night's dance. And though we did lose the football game, it was so amazing to see all of the staff and students and family and just community come together to celebrate Easton and all that it has to offer. Our clubs are just getting started again at EHS, getting back into the swing of things. So we did have our first Morgan's Message meeting, which focuses on mental health and athletes and really keeping a balance between the two. And they partnered with the women's volleyball team to have a Morgan's Message night. So they had pamphlets out and different posters that are now hung around our school just to remind our athletes that mental health comes first. Then we do also have the Talbot Goes Purple Club meetings have started up again and to raise drug awareness. We did also have our first National Honor Society meeting of the year. We are super excited to become more involved this year again. As a society, we've had different advisors, so we have that all solidified, and so we're looking at different volunteer options now. throughout our community. And then we did also have Math Club startup, which is super exciting because students can go and either be a tutor or get tutoring help. Chess Club, which is new, they meet every other Wednesday. And our student government has been meeting, specifically the sophomores worked very hard to put on a great homecoming. Juniors are starting to meet for prom, and seniors have been working all throughout to get after grad and just senior festivities set up, one of which included our senior sunrise, which happened a few weeks ago in the stadium. Our sports, we've been really focusing on senior nights. We had the boys soccer senior night, girls soccer senior night, golf senior night, field hockey had their senior night tonight. Football has theirs on Friday. This is really a great time where our seniors just get to be celebrated. And then our students have really been participating in the school, just making it feel like a welcome, warm place. So since it is October, which is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we did decorate one of the bulletin boards as you walk through the main hallway. Our Interact Club has also been working with Easton High School, working on gardening. So we just have a prettier, fresher place, and they will also be working on more volunteer work. And we did also have our CNA students start the blood pressure clinic, so you could get your blood pressure checked, and they got to practice real-world experiences. And other information that has happened. At Easton High School, we had our Chesapeake College dual enrollment information session, so whether you're a senior and you're wanting to move on to Chesapeake College, or you're a junior, senior wanting to participate in dual enrollment while you're still in high school, we had those meetings. Today was also Unity Day, so thank you to everyone who wore orange. We also had college application workshops that have been honestly going on throughout this whole week. So our guidance counselors and other staff members have been in the library aiding us and helping us write our college essays, apply to colleges, and it's been super helpful to have the support behind us. And we also have lots of colleges coming to visit us soon. Washington College, Stevenson University, Roanoke University, and we also have Towson. We just had University of Maryland College Park, and we have a few more coming up. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Exciting stuff happening. I love the start of the school year. So much fun things going on. Okay, next on our agenda is board committee reports. Does anybody have a report from their committee this month to share? Dr. P?
So, sorry. So what you see here, we are cranking up our committee work. And so our calendar committee is getting ready to get started. We have our 3 standing committees from last year in existence, and we wanted to show the members, and these will get rolled over into our website so we can recognize the people that are doing the work in a lot of important committee work that we're doing behind the scenes. One thing for the board, we do have a board member on all of the committees. However, I know, Ms. Dotson, you are on 2, so I was wondering, to give up one and have another person join one, either calendar or policy committee. But just wanted to let everyone know, and the purpose of that is so that we can have board representation to listen and then take that information back to the other fellow board members to discuss so that they can be informed on the ongoing work that we're talking about. So when it comes here, they're a little more informed on the work that is being done. So again, committee works are cranking up, getting ready to get started for the work, and then you all can let me know who wants to be on the calendar and/or policy committee. So I'll follow up with you. Okay.
I think we will discuss amongst ourselves and see who wants to pick that up, maybe get back to you.
Okay, sounds good.
And nobody else had a committee report this month? I know the MABE committees are not quite up to speed yet. Everybody's getting their feet under them for the new school year. So moving along, we have new business, starting with the FY24 annual financial statement audit with Mrs. Jones.
Good evening. I'm really just going to be introducing the partner from UHY LLC, who is our audit firm, Ms. Audrey McHenrick, and she's going to talk through the results of the very lengthy audit report and required communications. Good evening. I can push down, will that get to the presentation? You're going to want to move that microphone a little bit. Okay. Good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm going to go through, Ms. Jones is correct, Sarah Jones is correct. It is a lengthy audit report. We are going to condense that down into as few pages as possible. So probably the most important part of the audit report is right here. It's our independent auditor's report, and the second paragraph under opinions, where it states, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the Board of Education of Talbot County, Maryland, as of June 30th, 2024, and the respective changes in its financial position for the year then ended in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. What that means, it was a clean opinion. We found no issues to report to you, nothing to address. So that's probably the most important part of everything for you all. The audit report is probably about 3 pages, and that's just required communications that we have to present to you. And then the next section of the report is the management discussion and analysis. And what this tries to do is, this is done by the finance department, and it tries to give you an objective and easy to read analysis of the board's activities throughout the year. It explains the format of the different types of financial statements in the report. You have district-wide financial statements that present a short and long-term focus of your overall financial status. So that would be things like your capital assets and your long-term debt show here that don't show in the other statements. Then there are fund financial statements, which are more detailed and focus on your major funds, which include your unrestricted funds, your restricted grant funds, and your capital projects. You have fiduciary fund statements, which are primarily your other post-employment benefits, fall under that category. There are a lot of required footnotes and then required supplementary information and notes to that required supplementary information. And then there are key financial highlights included in that required supplementary information, such as budget versus actual results. And there's also a summary of factors impacting your operations, such as your funding sources going forward. And this is just a brief clip of the first page of that management and discussion and analysis. And so the first statement we want to talk about is the fund financial statements balance sheet. And I will just point out on the second page over there, you'll see your total assets at June 30th, 2024 include about $19 million in cash, with total assets of about $23 million. Your liabilities are about $11 million. And then your total fund balance as of the end of the year, which includes all your funds, is sitting at right around $12 million. And then the next statement breaks down your revenue and expenses for the year in those fund statements. And you'll see total revenue for the year was right around $94 million. Total expenses of around $93 million. You had some long-term leases you entered into, and that requires us to add another financing source of about $1.5 million. And again, that'll show the beginning fund balance at the beginning of the year was at about $9.89 million versus $12.15 million at the end of the year. And then again, statement of fiduciary net position. This is where you have one custodial fund for the Special Education Consortium, where you basically keep the accounting, the finance department keeps the accounting, the books of record for them. But that other column is your retiree health plan trust fund, which is your other post-employment benefits. And you will see that total assets in that fund have grown to about $2.4 million at the end of the year from the prior year. And there was a contribution during the current year to that fund as well by the board. And then the notes are extensive, and this kind of gives you a layout of the different notes that are in the financials. There were no notes this year, so everything is essentially the same as it was last year with current year numbers, but nothing new to point out to you there. And then finally, and probably the page that most everyone is usually concerned about, is the schedule of revenues and expenditures and encumbrances, budget versus actual. And you will see the first column is your original budget, the second column is your final budget, then your actual results and the variance. And you'll see for total revenues the amended and final budget was sitting at around 72 million, and you actually had revenues of about 72.3 million at the end of the year. And that was primarily due to interest earned. Everybody's getting a lot of interest now with those rising rates. So that brought your revenue in higher than anticipated. Expenditures and encumbrances, you budgeted to have expenditures and encumbrances of about 72.5 million, and you actually, expenditures were below that by about 71.4 million, with savings in salaries and the special education categories. So excess of revenues over expenditures before other financing sources was close to $1 million. And so that's what would go to your fund balance on this basis of accounting. And then this is just a breakout of the different schools, what the fund balance was at the schools, and your fund balance usually at that schools is equivalent to cash on hand. The revenues that were taken in during the year and expenditures and that ending cash balance. And you'll see total for the year started at about 397,000 and ended at about 425,000. And then fiscal year 24 comments and recommendations. So in the required audit communications, which are just standard verbiage because we had no issues, but there are new government accounting standards which will be implemented next year and then for maybe 1 or 2 years after that. The first one will impact you potentially. Currently, you record a liability for compensated absences, but it's going to require us to look at whether there's sick time that should be accrued for and things of that nature. But again, that will hit those government-wide, district-wide financials. The certain risk disclosures, I don't expect to have much impact. And then the financial reporting model improvements requires additional discussion in the management discussion and analysis about budget to actual results. And if you had different types of funds, it requires some changes to those. But again, nothing major in any of those that I think will be of significant impact to the financial statements. And I think that's it for me, unless somebody has a question. No, well, I would like to, if not, I would like to thank Sarah. Thank you and your staff. Just so everyone knows, the fiscal year ends on June 30th, and they are ready for us by August 1st, which is about 4 weeks later, which is a monumental task to be ready that quickly. They are our first board to go every year, so we really appreciate that and appreciate the hard work of you and your staff. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. I would just like to say that I heard in Gen Z speak, no notes. Perfect. So fantastic.
Yes.
I love
Yes.
it.
Yes.
Thank you for being here and doing this work for us. Thank you, Mrs. Jones, again, in the light of transparency and moving forward in full honesty and transparency with our financials. I'm just so pleased and proud that you can stand here and report this to us. I'm very, very thankful to be here in this county with such great financial leadership and guidance. So thank you all for the hard work that you do.
Thank you. Thanks, Audrey.
Okay, and Mrs. Jones, now you're going to speak to us about the fiscal year 25-26 budget timeline.
I am. I do just want to mention our controller, Stephanie Shenton Walbridge, is really the one that drives that audit, and she keeps us straight every day all year long. So I want to recognize her because she's really the reason that goes so smoothly. So for our budget timeline, we've tweaked it a little bit this year. In the past, our budget, as in the past, our ultimate goal is to get the budget to the county council by their deadline in February. And in the past, having needed to do 3 readers of the budget, that meant we did our first reader in December. But with the eye on reducing that to 2 readers, and given that we are now, back in the day, we used to get our revenue information, our state aid and local aid information from MSDE back in December. Well, now we get it late January, and it just seemed kind of like a moot point to start this process quite so early. So we've pushed things out a little bit, and this is the proposed revised timeline. We will be doing the first reader at a very deep dive at the January work session. We will do a summarized version and pass it from first to second reader at the January board meeting. At the February work session, Typically, we always have a public budget hearing where the public can come and weigh in and give comments, because the budget will have been posted at that point on our website for a month. So we'll have an opportunity to have the public budget hearing right before the work session on February 10th, and then the board can get together and talk about what they've heard at that or other thoughts and things that have bubbled up in their review of the budget. And then we would, at the February board meeting, vote to pass a budget to submit to the county council. So that's the general gist of it.
So just a little bit condensed or later, but nothing majorly different. I'm seeing the two public hearings are the same and the.
I think that things that changed in the past, in my experience in the last 4 years, virtually nothing happens in the January timeframe, other than perhaps I get the budget, the revenue information in time to inform you of, okay, we came in, we're on target. But really it just kind of sits there and lulls. We do a lot of work for the December, and then everything kind of waits till February. So this does just kind of condense it. I think the only step we sort of elected to omit, if you will, is a formal budget survey, because we feel like we've been getting good feedback year after year after year. It hasn't really changed. We feel like we have priorities from the board, and we feel like with that direction, and then with the opportunity for the public to come in February and voice additional concerns, and of course they could submit public comment. We felt like that was a pretty good mechanism for public input, if you will, versus doing a survey. I feel like, we don't want to burn out people on surveys. So that was one thing we were planning not to repeat, if that makes sense. Other than that, it's the same process. I will say in December, we'll do some pre-work. I believe at the December work session, our thought is to just kind of refresh everyone on what some of the requirements are for meeting Blueprint, the 75% spending at school for various Blueprint categories. We might, if we have other information to share at that time, such as capital or request, or such as new positions or things like that, we might go ahead and forward load some of that work in December. But this schedule works for us. I did confirm with the county council they would be fine with getting their budget on February 19th. So if that meets with your approval, then we will proceed along like this.
Does anybody have questions for Mrs. Jones? You don't need a vote from us on this, right?
I don't think so.
Okay, no, I don't think so either. Sounds good to me. Thank you very much. Last in new business, we have the development and adoption of board policy, AR Policy Code 2.5.
Okay, so just as you heard Ms. Jones talk about in the timeline, a first and second reader, we've been working on moving our policy around the development of adopting of a policy from 3 to 2 readers. So what we have realized is that while the policy you saw, and I'm getting ready to pass out hard copies for you, we had scratch outs, strikeouts, there was no AR that went with the policy. So what I'm getting ready to show you, so I'm going to talk about the AR first, but then the next thing is unfinished business is actually the policy moving to that last third reader, which means we'll go to 2 readers, if you follow me. So what you're going to see first, I'm going to start with AR. And the reason why you have it all highlighted is because it's all new. And what we did was we moved all of the practices that go with moving a policy, looking at a policy, moving it from first. We moved all of that into the AR, which are the practices. So I'm going to pass out for you that in hard copy so you can see it. So, a couple things I want to point out. One, the policy committee has not met yet. We had a scheduled meeting on the day we had the internet challenges. So we didn't have it. So what I did was I took the discretion and I actually added it for situations that may come up with the internet. On this page, Roman numeral 5, there's some procedural exceptions. And it speaks to if we were to have an extraordinary circumstance such as the coronavirus. It also speaks to if other circumstances arise, the superintendent will notify the board that it has not gone before the policy committee. So I'm notifying you that this has not gone before the policy committee, but I didn't want to wait because I wanted us to keep moving it to readers so that we can get more policies through and start up with that. So again, all of what you're seeing, again, is a new AR that's attached to the policy 2.5, which is the policy around development and adoption of board policy. So this talks about what a policy is, what an AR is, what happens at the first reading, what happens at a second reading, the review and adoption, basically saying that it goes before the policy committee, it gets approved by the board, administrative regulation, all of those steps, and then that last section which talks about procedural exceptions. So again, brand new AR that we had, again, extracted away from the policy and made these more of the practices that happen of moving a policy. So with that said, I then want to show you what then is the actual policy. So this first paragraph here, and you can see everything else, and you have that hard copy as well, you could see everything is striked out because we removed all of that, put that in the AR, and what you see is the policy is just that first paragraph that says formal adoption of a new policy are the responsibility of the board. It will occur only after the policy has been out for public comment. Minimum of 2 board meetings. Proposals will be initiated in writing by the superintendent. The policy will go to the policy for review and encourages, employees to engage in the activities. And then we moved everything else into the practices, which are the AR. The last board meeting, we talked about having the discretion to move to third, so we made sure we put that in that AR there. So I believe we covered everything that we have talked about the last few months in regards to this 2.5 and asking for a vote for this to become policy 2.5.
I make a motion that we move policy code 2.5 to be adopted.
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
I would like to thank you. As a board, we have been asking for this, these ARs, for years, and it is so refreshing to see them. So thank you very, very much for doing this work.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have the staff criminal background check / criminal record check policy 7.5 AR with Dr. Horsey.
Good evening, Dr. Jackson and board members and Dr. Pepakaye. What I'm presenting this evening is for information, and it is the update to the AR. So this AR is just highlighting some of the changes that have occurred as a result of a recent audit in our department, and we're just making some changes to the AR policy to reflect some of the recommendations that were provided to us. So I'm presenting this tonight for information only.
Does anybody have questions for Dr. Horsey? You want to take a second to just look at it?
Dr. Horsey, where did the recommendations come from?
So what happened in the HR department prior to me coming, I lost the word. The review of some practices and policies. Practices were presented, and these were the findings. So you'll see, for an example, things that were happening already. We just needed to make sure that we had those things in writing, and that, for example, who could review a personnel file. And again, we all knew that standard procedure, but again, we just wanted to update the AR to reflect that. And that was some of the recommendations that came out of those findings.
Anybody else with questions? Okay, thank you, Dr. Horsey.
Thank you.
Next, we are going to be hearing from Mr. Schaefer about the TCPS athletic fields inventory.
Thank you, President Jackson. Good evening, members of the board. So I really, admittedly, don't have a lot of information to share with the board, but based on the board's direction at the last meeting, we have started a process of basically trying to inventory our fields and assess each of the fields for its, quality, playability. And so we have started a conversation with a turf firm that does that professionally. They've done some notable work, Raven Stadium, whatever. So they're established firm, and so I am waiting on some information back from them. Myself and the athletic director are also assessing the fields, and so we're just trying to give a comprehensive review of where we're at and what the fields may need, moving forward to the board's direction of coming up with a multi-year plan for improvements. So just have a rubric that we've come up with, and it's a simple one. There's lots of ways to grade fields, but looking at turf quality, field grading and drainage, and then also, and finally, just general conditions, and then using the rating scale below. And so hopefully within the, coming up in the next meeting or so, we should be able to have some, comprehensive information and where we want to kind of go with that multi-year phased-in approach to improving the fields. If there's any questions, I can answer them.
I do have a question. Can you go back to that map, please?
Yes.
I don't know the ins and outs of the St. Michael's campus as well as I know the Easton campuses. Do middle schoolers use the fields on the St. Michael's campus?
So there is a middle school program through the YMCA, I believe, and that I don't think is listed on there as far as, because we don't recognize middle school sports, but yes, so the field 5 on the St. Michael's map there is the one that's currently being used by the YMCA. Now, just to be clear, that is a geothermal well field. It's a grass space. It's not a field. It's kind of been commandeered as a field. So that is one of the lowest ranking fields that we have as far as its playability. So that's one that's going to need some significant improvements to make a field.
I ask because I know that Easton Middle School practices above Field 1. Those are Easton Middle School fields. I also know that they are used by the Y as well. Yes. I don't personally know who owns that space.
We do.
We do.
Yes.
I also have a personal interest in advancing middle school sports and would like to see them have a place that they can have a safe practice at their own home school. So if we are going to be considering Field 5 as part of our considerations here, I'd really like to see Field 2 and 3 up there also on the list. Even if it's a pipe dream, even if it comes, even if we need more long-term planning around this, I think in fairness, if we're going to be discussing middle school fields there, we should discuss middle school fields there. But I think we should be discussing middle school fields in general too.
So I just want to be clear, and so community use fields, we were not looking at as part of our what I would say are sanctioned athletic fields. Field 5, which is currently being used by the YMCA, is anticipated to be a practice field. St. Michael's needs a practice field for the field hockey team and for the soccer team. So field, field 3 and 5 would be those fields. So that's why I included that and did not include the community use fields on the Easton Middle School campus. But I hear you. I do hear you.
Oh, I understand, and I also recognize that we don't have an established program around middle school sports. I think this is more a suggestion and an attempt to move in that direction.
Yeah.
We do have middle school teams, so, you know, we're sort of living in that weird middle zone, and I think that we should be moving towards more actually supporting them and making them, like I said, have legitimate, safe playing fields.
Where does Easton Middle School soccer practice?
They practice up
practice in
to
this-
the right. Yeah, they practice kind of
in
to the
this
right
field.
at field one, and middle field hockey practices
Right,
to the kind of the
to
left.
the right. Okay.
Yeah, my understanding. I don't know.
Yeah, they do. And once again, that's a community use space that they have the middle school level age group sports taking place from outside organizations. I know that, I can't say for certain who organizes the middle school soccer, program. But I do know that the YMCA does the St. Michael's field hockey and the like. I'm sorry. So lacrosse maybe is what I'm thinking of. I don't know. I'll admit I don't know the middle school programs. I don't know them.
Right. This is kind of the larger issue, right? Like it's a little bit piecemeal. It's kind of a mess. I think the fields that we currently have to be the priority, especially because we have the money right now. We need to talk about budget moving forward from like today. But I would like to throw middle school athletics into the ring as something that we should be discussing and planning for. Maybe it doesn't congeal this year, but that it's something that we have to sort of pay attention to.
Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Schaefer, at the Easton Middle site behind Field 1, who is currently maintaining that? Are we currently maintaining that?
We do, yes. Yep. Yeah, and really what maintaining means is mowing. That is what we're doing. And that is a community use space, so it does tend to fall to whether it was Parks and Rec that was primarily using that field, that they would be the ones that would be maintaining them for playability. So, it's kind of that trade-off. But it is a valid situation that we need to be considering and making sure that those fields are also getting some attention. So.
We're planting trees along the back, correct? Isn't that happening? Did we just vote on that?
Yes, correct. And I did look at that space, and it is well away from any neighbors. The tree planting will be no problem. It'll be a welcome thing back there, so.
I appreciate this. I appreciate the amount of work that it needs to happen in order for us to make some decisions about this. Where are we from a budget perspective? I thought that we needed to make some decisions tonight. So, but are we going to have enough information to make the decisions that we need to make? Because this seems like a preliminary.
Potential project.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Schaefer. Did anybody else have any questions before we moved on to the budget part of it? Okay.
All right. So I thought what we would start with is just talking about the items besides chapel renovation that were in our original budget request to the county. And we had those artificial turf field, singular, at Easton High School as an item that we were requesting, replacement of auditorium lights for Easton High School. The basketball, and so both of those, as you'll see on the next slide, are, nothing has happened with those projects. But I wanted to sort of give you an update on the other three projects that were in our original capital request, which have either been completed or we made progress, and we are funding through grants. So the basketball court at Easton Elementary School, Mr. Schaefer did a bid process on that. He's awarded a contract, and that work will be happening. There is also along with that, there is a play surface more for soccer, kind of right up against the school to give some other additional space for outdoor recreation right up at the school. And that was paid for with grant funds, which have now expired, meaning we've obligated them, but there are no more funds. Stadium light conversion over to LED, $222,000, came in a little bit under budget, and we paid for those with grant funds. And finally, the entire St. Michael's Elementary playground at a cost of that also came in slightly under budget, of $450,000 has been completed. It is open, it is being used, and it was paid for with grant funds. So we don't need to consider those items. So next up is some things that we have talked about. I think we've talked about all of these. Some of these may be new, for example, so artificial turf field, the auditorium lights, just I think we've heard a lot about the turf field, so that's kind of fresh in our minds, just to refresh us on the auditorium lights. That system is approximately 35 years old. Parts are completely unavailable. We have significant concern about that auditorium going dark, so that's a high priority for us from a usability, since all the schools use that auditorium. We've talked about, as part of a phased-in plan, maybe starting with upgrading, doing some upgrades to our existing turf fields. Mr. Schaefer is in talks with this turf management company. We just kind of I don't want to say we threw out, I mean, Mr. Schaefer, and you can get up and talk about how we came up with that amount, but that's sort of a placeholder amount, if you will, to do some work for some of our fields. But my thought on that is, it's not necessarily a capital item. That's something we could actually pay for out of our operating budget. We need to make a budget amendment within our budget, but we would not necessarily need to use. I think we will, I think we could have the savings, and we could make a budget adjustment within our operating budget to cover some work on the turf fields, if that's something you want to move forward with. We have 8 units on top of Easton High School that do all the climate control at Easton High School. 4 of them are, I guess, date back to the last time we renovated the high school, so they're 26 years old. 2 of those we've had pretty significant issues with. Of the 8, 4 have been replaced, so we're down to kind of 4 older units. To replace all 4 of them would be $1.1 million. I put that little money sign next to projects that could be scaled, so we wouldn't have to do all 4. We could do 1, 2, 3, 4. And then as far as the St. Michael's Middle High School LED light replacement, we're at a point now where, with the construction of chapel and with a project that's going to be starting at St. Michael's Elementary School very soon, St. Michael's Middle High School will be the last school in the school system that does not have the new LED lights. They've got the old fluorescent lights. At some point we need to replace those with the newer LED lights. So that, because we are having that work done at St. Michael's Elementary School right now, and that is grant funded, we did not have enough money in our grants to pay for the entire campus. This is the estimate for the middle high school side of things. So that would be the current cost to do that. So those are kind of some of the projects that we've priced out, come up with, and I don't know if there are any others that are under your thoughts for consideration.
So you mentioned how we could piecemeal the HVAC at Easton High. Where is Easton High at in terms of building replacement on the list? Because before we pump a whole bunch of money in there, how many more years are we expecting to use the current building?
We're 16 years out from occupying a building, 2040. I don't know that these 26-year-old units are going to make 16 more years, right?
Not that long. And then can you talk to me about, aside from the HVAC then, can you talk to me about piecemealing the turf field at Easton High and what that looks like? I know when we were at the county council meeting last night, they said that we could look at, scaling the budget items, a few years out and phasing in the funding for those, which I like the idea of, but I just kind of wonder what the phasing in for that particular line item looks like.
So I don't have an answer, because I don't know what ultimately, this was the cost for the one turf field. So if the idea is, well, we want to do more than one, or we want to do one at more than one school, whatever. I don't know what that ultimate price tag is, but certainly we could preserve some of this $1.5 million in capital, preserve that toward turf fields, and maybe add more to it, as they were talking about next year in our 26 budget and more in our 27 budget, and or think of other funding sources to kind of tie all of that together to come up with, to meet our plan. But we don't obviously have the plan right now. So the question, and, you may want to think about is, yeah, I don't, never mind. I don't know what the question is. I guess you can preserve, we don't have enough money to do one singular turf field. How much of, what are these projects are the priority, and how much would you want to save, if any, this year of our 1.5 million toward a turf field project? But you're right, what we heard last night, for those of you who weren't with us from the county council, is that the way it works legally is we're able to sort of preserve those funds for a 3-year period. So if we identify a capital project and we keep it somewhat broad in our description, athletic turf, artificial turf fields for athletics, and we assign a price to it, we don't have to immediately spend that money this year. We have some time to work on those projects up to 3 years.
Thank you. Can I also ask, what does each unit for HVAC cost at Easton High? If we were piecemealing out, what is the cost of each unit?
So I have to do the math there. 250, I guess is that $275,000 a piece, it looks like? I think that's 275. Math is not my strong suit. Just kidding. I think
$275,000.
Okay.
So just to be clear on the HVAC units, the rooftop units at Easton High School, that is a budget number, and there are a lot of factors that would cause that cost to fluctuate. Design costs, we don't know what that will be. And there are cooperative purchasing agreements like Sourcewell and others that we could take advantage of that we may not have any design costs. So it's just one of those things that it is a budget number. But I will say doing 1 versus 4 is going to be much more expensive per unit cost. So.
Who else has questions?
Sarah, I was just wondering, could we use some of that 1.125 million instead of putting it to the fund balance, could we use that for some of our capital projects? Because they seem to be mounting up.
Yes, the board at any point can say, there's different categories. In fact, if I had a budget book, I could tell you in your footnotes. Do you have the big, thick one? I know you want to go home and read this before bed tonight, so. Right. So there are a couple different kinds of fund balance. You can commit fund balance, which means the board actually votes and says, we are going to commit X amount. It could be a percentage, it could be a dollar amount. We're going to save this for X purpose, and it could be we're going to set this aside for the future building of turf fields. There is a category of fund balance called committed fund balance, assigned fund balance, and that is something Dr. Pepikai could say, ooh, I might come to her and say, we really need these HVAC units now, like they're not in our budget, but we really need these, and she could kind of set that aside. We haven't done that before. We would probably just come to the board. I will point out, when Ms. McHenrick was talking about her fund balance today, and she was talking about $12 million, we don't have $12 million of fund balance in the sense that we talk about fund balance. We have $8 million of fund balance. The difference is those first sets of financial statements are just not the basis of financial statements that we talk about in here, that we share with the public, that we share with MSDE. We focus on those budget to actuals, which are in the back of the budget book. We set a budget. That's what we spend from. The financial statements, the government basis and the fund basis financial statements, they're calculating in things like our OPEB liability and things that they're real, but they're sort of not a cash basis, if you will. It's more of an accrual basis, whereas we kind of live more on the cash basis of funding things. So our cash basis fund balance is closer to $8 million. We added about $1 million to the bottom line this year, to that fund balance. So to answer, long way of answering your question, yes, the board can vote to set aside reserve fund balance at any point. Or you don't have to. It can just be a decision you make at some point. You can just say, we do want to move forward with this, and we're going to use some of our fund balance. And so that is basically a budget adjustment. You're going to use some of your fund balance, and you're going to pass a budget adjustment to use it. So that can be done at any point. Does that answer your question?
So my question is for the upgrades to the existing fields. So that's what we're still evaluating, what that's going to actually look like. And so I'm just, thinking of being a good physical steward. So if we're going to do that, then we need to think about how that impacts whether or not we're going to do the artificial field. Because to me, it's going to be basically doing something twice. And wherever there's going to be a field that we end up doing something to twice, depending on where the turf field lands. So that's my concern.
Absolutely. I mean, I think just this is hearsay. So from talking to Kevin, I think this work is, fertilizing, overseeding, all that kind of stuff. So I think the cost per field, that's the cost, that's an estimated cost of upgrading quite a number of our fields. So, if we were to invest that cost now and not add an artificial turf field for 2 years, that still might be money really well invested. To do that upgrade now and then to make a replacement next summer, I would take your point. You know what I mean? So I guess it's all going to come down to the time frame the board has. And I realize you don't know that because we haven't given you quite enough information yet.
Mr. Schaefer, you admittedly just told us that you have not had an opportunity yet to do a thorough analysis of these other fields. So how accurate do we think this 200,000 number is?
So I think the board knows me well enough by now that I don't like to go out on a huge limb with information that's not confirmed, But I want to be clear, and I don't want to get into the weeds and take a lot of time here with the weeds, no pun intended. The contractor, who is, as I said, reputable and experienced, and we also have local contractors that are reputable and experienced that we deal with. But this was the first time this contractor was seeing all of our fields, and I walked with him the entire time, and at Easton High School, Ms. Hoffman did as well. And the truth of the matter is that, in his opinion, we have really nice grass fields. They need better maintenance. And so that's why this conversation about $200,000, we also need a couple of pieces of equipment to do better maintenance. And then, as Sarah kind of mentioned, some overseeding, some top dressing, in which all this stuff I learned a lot about in my walk with this contractor. But it comes down to allocating more resources to our grass fields. That's really what it comes down to. And so that's why I think that this is something that we can adjust through budget by greater budget requests in the maintenance department allocated towards our grass fields. But the 200,000 was to do some immediate stuff and also to purchase some immediate equipment so that we can do a better job. So I do think I'm comfortable with that 200,000. And just one other note on the synthetic artificial turf field. I want to be clear on, I really think that there's only one option for that field. And I mean that is if we're going, if we are going to, if the board determines that they want to move forward with that, it really should probably be the stadium field. It's not a field that you want to have open access to at any time. Because right now, I mean, our fields are used on the weekends, and if they're not secured, I'm not saying we couldn't fence something else off, but it does kind of make sense if we were going to do it on that field. So that's just my opinion on that, so.
I have one question on the upgrading the fields. Does that include filling in the holes that the girls were talking about? Because that's my concern.
And mine too, Ms. Bridges, no question about it. I walked every inch of the fields. And I just want to restate that I am not at all arguing with anyone's opinions of what our fields are like. We did not find any holes in the fields, and it would be the school staff's responsibility, coaches, athletic director. I mean, they have to be doing that, their due diligence to make sure that my maintenance staff are not walking every field every day. And the athletes are, and of course, if they report, a deficiency in the field to a coach, the idea would be that the coach would say something to the athletic director or the building manager, and then a work order would be placed. It's a safety issue. It would be addressed immediately. And so I just want to kind of reiterate that that's the process. And as far as I know, it's working. And I did not personally see any safety issues, nor did this consultant when we walked all the fields. So.
Just to piggyback that question real quick, so that's a process that's in place. Is that a written policy procedure that happens, or is it just kind of, this is what we expect people to do?
So I can't speak to what the coaches are trained on, certainly as far as, what they get in their coaches training and that type of thing. But yes, I would say that the athletic director is very aware of what her responsibilities are as far as playability and safety on those fields. So is it policy? No, it's not written in policy. Is it a best practice? It absolutely is. And I think that's certainly something that's in place, in my opinion.
Please stay there. I have a question for you. Yeah, sure. I think that we had spoken last time about actually upgrading our fields. And what I'm hearing from you is not so much an upgrade, but more like get them to what their current potential is. And with all due respect, I've seen some really, really crappy fields in my time, and I don't think that ours are at the lowest of the low, but I've also seen some really great fields, and I do not think that ours are anything to write home about. And I was under the impression that our discussion last time was talking about bringing in some improvements, a higher quality grass, or just leveling up a little bit, rather than just doing what we have been supposed to be doing all along. So I'm kind of wondering, is $200,000 an accurate number for what? I mean, I don't know what's in everybody's head, but I don't know if that's an accurate number to achieve what I was hoping we were going to achieve, really leveling up our fields. Second, I would make the argument, I hear what you're saying, about the stadium making the obvious place because it is already fenced off. But you also provided us with a lot of information about how football in particular is a dangerous sport to play on turf unless it is absolutely the correct turf and you are trained the right way and you're wearing the right shoes. And if that is the case, then that turf is not necessarily the best turf for every other sport. So my argument would be that it's not the best place for that field, and that we could look at maybe fencing off a different field to make it a more appropriate and safe field for our athletes to be on. And I would hope that because Field 1, as I saw, was the largest field that we have, maybe it would be at a slightly lower cost. Yeah. That's point one.
So, point one, or topic one, yeah, whatever. Once again, learned a lot through the conversation that took place. And it's not the first time that I've heard the information, but when the vernacular that's associated with maintaining fields is not something that I speak well, right? So I'm just going to own that. But the equipment that we're talking about purchasing and the improvements that we're talking about making, top dressing, if we were doing that properly, then having a you know, what the board, I think, said the last meeting was, maybe you did, Ms. Jackson, premier fields. We would get to that. Now, this is not a snap your fingers and it happens. This is the way that people that have premier fields have them, as I've learned, was through constant maintenance. And the crazy thing is some of the simplest stuff makes the biggest difference. If we're going to, you know, have real Bermuda grass fields, we need to be mowing them 2 to 3 times a week, all the time, when they're not being used. So, and I'm talking about during the growing season. So, but during the summer, which is, you know, obviously the greatest growing season, we need to be mowing them like they're being played on, even though they're not. And so it's a resource allocation type thing. So just want to be clear on that. And top dressing and some of the equipment that we're having, just simple aerating of the fields. You can do stuff with those. So aerating is just basically poking holes all over the field, and they pull a plug out. And then you can harvest those, and then you start to use those for areas that are low spots, and also with, it helps to facilitate better growing of the Bermuda. So it's just it's a maintenance program that we need to adhere to.
So is that 200,000 enough to start growing Bermuda grass to a premier field and maintain it? Do we need new positions? I hear we need new equipment.
So I would say 2 things. As I said, yes, I think that's an initial investment that would help us get there, and then also requesting more money in our annual maintenance budget to accommodate the greater needs. So, and then just to on these artificial turf, I would just say that. How would I say this? As also a taxpayer of Talbot County, I would urge the board, I'm trying to be diplomatic here, I would urge the board to consider whether that would be the most equitable use of those funds to invest 1.2, 1.3, 1.5, whatever it ends up being for a smaller field, to just have a turf field for one sport. I mean, that, you know, if it's going to be field hockey or whatever, I question whether that is a good investment in, you know, moving forward. So
I wouldn't suggest that it would be for one sport. I'm just saying I'm identifying the field by who plays on it currently.
yes.
For example, you know, but a big rectangle field can be played on by pretty much anybody.
I guess what I'm saying is that you wouldn't be able to have a real athletic event at those side fields. It would have to change. The geography of Easton High School practice fields would have to change if you installed a game field that was meant to be have a sizable crowd. There's challenges with that. So I just want to make sure that we're thinking about all the parameters before making a decision to, you know, install a premier turf field somewhere else besides the stadium.
And I guess I'm going to jump in here to looking at the picture again. And Ms. Jackson, I want to make sure what the field that you were, if we're looking at Easton High, that you were referencing for that turf.
Oh, I don't really care. The other fields are smaller by half. So field 6 would make sense. You feel like you could fence that off. Field 3, you could fence that off. You could even probably figure out how to fence off field 2. I don't know who exactly plays. I mean, I think I know who plays where, but only because I happen to know.
Okay.
My interest is safety, right? I want the safest field. That has to come first. Safety for all of our athletes has to be the #1 priority. Number 2, very closely following that is opportunity for our athletes, and I want to make sure that we are giving the most amount of opportunity to the most amount of kids. And in the conversations that I've had about turf, it does sound like it is specific, you know, that if you try to put down a general turf for everybody to play on, you're providing a not so awesome surface for everybody. And that doesn't, to me, lead to greater opportunity. So I just want to make sure, and again, this is a lot of money, that we're doing the most right by the most number of our athletes. But also, I think about, and you know, we'll have to also consider putting one in at St. Michael's, and all of the things that you're saying, the reasons why we wouldn't do anything but the stadium there also exist at St. Michael's, because they don't have a football stadium. They have all smaller fields that are not designed for a super large crowd. So it seems like a problem we're going to have to solve. However, if we put turf down at all, we're going to have to think about this as an issue. And then accessibility of that field as well. So yeah, it makes sense that that's a large price tag. Putting that aside for a moment, I did have another question, and this is about all of these projects that have just sort of showed up. Is this a preview of what we might see for capital projects for FY26, or is this these emergent things that we need to talk about right now, and we're also going to see another big list of things that are emergent in FY26 as well.
Well, we haven't talked at all about FY26 yet, but what I would say is, I mean, I think the auditorium lights project is pretty high priority. I'll let Kevin talk about the HVAC.
Yes, the rooftop units at Easton High School, just to be clear, they are aging. And they've been identified through the state maintenance effectiveness assessments as one of our top should be one of our top priorities for replacement, only because they're so important. Without them, then we're obviously jeopardizing classroom environment, with the use that they serve. But with that said, we are currently still able to get parts. It's getting harder, and we're really talking about the electronics part of the controls. I will say that we did include this also in the FY26 capital improvement plan to the state for funding in don't quote me, FY28 or whatever. So, can we make it that far? Yes. But it is important that we identify, the significant needs that are coming up. So I know I'm not helping the board making decisions. I apologize. But these are things that are on the horizon that we felt like we needed to at least be talking about because we do have available funding.
Can you remind us, I don't know if you know the number off the top of your head, but you have said before that there is a best practice amount that we should have in our fund balance, that should stay in our fund balance. Do you remember how much that is?
Yeah, well, the number changes. It's 16 to 17% of that, which is our policy of our operating budget, and I would have to do the math on that. So I don't know where we are. I can tell you, I think we're around 11 or 12%, I believe, is what I calculate at the end of the year. So
I asked because I want to add on to Mrs. Bridges' comment about pulling from our fund balance. And I have heard from County Council, I heard it again last night, that they would be more amenable to working with us on these larger projects if we would have some skin in the game, essentially. Sure. And I've heard that on an individual level from various members, and then I heard it last night, in our public meeting. And I feel like something like the turf field, like a project like that, which is not entirely necessary, right? Like this is a want, not a need. Some of these things are a need. That's the point of a fund balance, right? That's why you have that, is for projects that you want to undertake like that. And so I am open to looking at how we can use some of our fund balance, some small, not whatever, because I think that's what it's for.
I agree, and I think that's definitely the county's position as well. What we might want to do is think in the spring, as we're putting together FY26 FY26 operating budget and capital budget. Okay, here's our list, and as we heard last night, we're going to be pulling together sort of a multi-year, a 5-year capital budget. In conjunction with this FY26 budget. So we'll have, a lot of detail for FY26 and some identified things for 27 through 30. And, it might be at that point where we would be better positioned to say, looking at these other things on the horizon and looking at what, how our operating budget is looking for FY26, because we've got, we've got to factor in all the things, that we need to educate our children. At that point, we might say, oh, well, we really need a couple $100,000 of fund balance just to balance our operating budget for FY26, or to make this one-time purchase that we need for FY26. So I hear you about fund balance. You can commit some now. You can always change your mind. Just because you assign fund balance doesn't mean you can't change your mind later.
As kind of a sidebar, Dr. P, it would be nice to hear from Mrs. Hoffman about our field safety review procedures. If it's not a policy, it must be a procedure. So it would be nice to know how that's currently being handled, and if that would become a policy. I think that's something that we all would like to hear more about.
Yeah, I have that written down, and that's something I could look into. I was a coach before, and so I would just presume, I'm going out on a limb, if students were going to their coach saying, we have holes, we have holes, we have holes, the coach would bring that up, but I can't confirm, what the practice is with that. So, but that's something I can look into.
Because I feel like a large portion of where this turf field came out of from Elgin's Army was that they felt that the field conditions were not good.
And I just don't know about people's awareness of all of those things. Are you going to your coach to say that? Is your coach going to the athlete, what is actually happening there? I think we need to have that laid out more concretely.
I was hoping to see with this, that you would come to us and say, here's how we're going to make it happen. Here is our plan. This is how we suggest that you spend this money. This is how, so all of these things need to happen. I think we agree, yes.
Well, okay.
I think as a board, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to speak for anybody up here, but I think we are in support of everything up here happening. How can we best stage this? How can we use the funding mechanism that the county council presented to us last night? How can we, moving forward, get this done?
Well, I guess I want to jump in because I want to make sure we're clear, listening to the conversation, and I had Ms. Brundage print the minutes. And so a lot of the questions were, how can safety seemed like it was a big thing, but also we had this 1.5 that we had to decide, are we going to push it off? Are we going to save some? Are we going to phase things out? So one of the responsibilities of the board is budget and policy. And so I don't, while I have my opinion, certainly we laid all this out for you all to hopefully say, well, some of our priorities in spending the money are A, B, C. And so we tried to lay out, I heard maintenance, so we tried to throw out 200,000. Now, I do think what's come out of this is, what I've written down is, what are the practices now for the holes on the field? And I think that's one thing that we can do. And a list of all the things that we know need to happen. And we could say, oh, we want this to happen, but not, making sure the board in your due diligence of having the responsibility of being fiscally responsible and spending the money in the budget, looking as we're going to go into the budget cycle.
Okay.
What
so
are some of your high?
Here's what I suggest then. This is what I think, I think we fund the auditorium lights. That seems very necessary. I think we do the upgrades to the existing natural turf fields, $200,000. We have to do that. I think we pay for replace one of the four remaining units. And then I think we put a third of the amount into the turf field project as suggested. And that is more than $1.5 million. And we pull from our fund balance, whatever the difference is.
I would say, my personal opinion is auditorium lights, that 200,000, I feel like doesn't have to come out of our capital. I think if the board's willing to fund that out of the operating budget, we can handle it that way. So let's just, if that's a priority, then we'll move forward with that, and which it is. We'll move forward with that, and then at some point in the future, we'll come to you with a budget adjustment to the operating budget, a category shift, if that's acceptable. And then we're down to, okay, so you're saying place on hold the lights, and one, you could possibly that way do 2 of the HVAC units. Okay, all right.
It can be implemented in phases, but it's not necessarily as cost effective to do it that way.
I'm just going to say one more opinion. I apologize for my opinions. But if I had to prioritize the HVAC units at Easton High School or finishing the lights at St. Michael's, we have a proposal, we have a contractor in place. It would be great to complete that, because that is also an environmental thing. And it is also something a that the EPA is phasing out those fluorescent lights, which could happen sooner than the units at Easton High School become a need. I just want to, put it out there.
It's about the same amount of money as half of
It's just,
the, yeah,
right.
yeah. I defer to you as to which is more important.
Yeah, I would have said auditorium lights, the upgrades. We're gonna do separately. The most cost-effective way for the HVAC, and then the LED lights, because those are going to go quickly as well.
Did I hear you right saying that you would prioritize the LED lights at St. Michael's campus over the HVAC units just because we already have the contractor coming in to work the other half at the campus? So they're going to be on site this fall, right? Do we know? Yeah, this fall. So there are, okay. So just to clarify that feedback.
I think we're all aware of the fact that we have several things up there that need to be done and have to be done. And so I think that we should take these things that need to be done and have to be done. And I think the auditorium lights, we've been convinced they're going to have to be done or it's going to go dark in there. And we can't fix it. We can't get the parts to fix the lighting system in there. And I would respect Kevin's opinion on the LED lights. If we do the things that we need to do, and the board is responsible for doing the things that need to be done, we could still make a plan to put aside money for the turf field. But I think we've got to realize that's not something we're going to be able to do this year. And I know it's not a popular opinion with some people in the public, but we just can't do the things that are necessary to be done and do that.
And I think maybe not in totality, but I think that we should begin to lay down a concrete plan, if that's the way we're going to go, of how we're going to fund it in the future and what that's going to look like. I think that's kind of where some of the calls in the community is coming from, is what's the plan for it? And I just think that we need more information even about the upgrading. Like, what does that look like before we can even determine where to put it, what to do there. So I think we need to do that piece, evaluate what we have, and then make a determination of a plan that we're going to put together if we're going to do the turf field.
I agree, except I feel like that's what we asked for and where we are right now, right? So we put this in the budget. We said, will you fund it? And they said, yeah, we will. Here we are, you choose, which is impossible. But we did. Like, that's, I kind of feel like we're just spinning our wheels if we go back and say that again. Give us a plan, give us the money. How are we going to do this? Because we have been given the money, and then out of nowhere came these other necessary things that we weren't even talking about last month, that haven't even come up. And so what I'm worried is that we're going to get another concrete plan. We're going to hear about this again. We're going to hear about, we just need this amount of money. And then we're going to get to the finish line. We're going to be right there, and $2 more $1 million projects are going to come up as absolutely necessary, have to do these. This takes priority. Something is always going to take priority, and which is why I'm saying fund balance, because that's what it's for. It's for those side projects that are never going to take priority. This is never going to be on fire. This is a want. And I say that, and I can recognize this and say, I heard from the students, so dipping back into MABE, I heard our student board panel at MABE say, fund the things that we want, fund the things that matter to us, fund the things that are important to us, fund the things that are going to be exciting to us, and they talked about other things, which we'll bring up in our next budget process. But I'm listening to the students, I'm listening to them saying, we need this. So yeah, some of these boring things are needs. And as adults, we have to fund the boring stuff that keeps the lights on, literally. But we also have to listen to our students and what they're asking for.
Funding the things that you've talked about, like one scenario with the stadium, the lights, and then we're not going to talk about the maintenance of the turf fields. We've got a way to handle that. That leaves $117,000 of the 1.5, which, combined with maybe a capital request in our FY26 budget, combined with an amount we set aside for fund balance could get us to our $1.8 million. If you're willing to, if you're not expecting this turf field to be installed next summer.
I think I hear you. So, and I think the backdrop of that is Mr. Schaefer with the completed rubric of, because I think you were saying, what are the actual grades from this consultant that he's going to put on the rubric?
I think you have to start there. Like, we don't even know, do we have our fields in condition to have this even? Like, I think we need to know that before we just do that. But I feel like we're on the path of doing that. But that's what I'm looking for. What is the path forward for funding this? Once that rubric is done, like if we have leftover from this capital budget, then we're going to commit that to our fields in some form or fashion, whether it's going to be continuous or even more upgrades, or whether it's going to be the turf field, whichever of the two. So
When the board votes on how they want to allocate the $1.5 million, I see two scenarios. One is you say, okay, we know we want to do projects A and B, it totals this amount, let's say it's $1.3 million. And then we'll go to the county council, we'll say, we want to do this project and this project, it's $1.3 million. We haven't decided how we're spending the $200,000, the remaining $200,000. Or we can go and say, and the $200,000 is going to be toward project C, such as turf fields, that will happen at some point in the future. At any rate, once you vote, we will go to the county council with that information. They have to do capital enabling legislation, and then there's a 60-day period of time we have to wait before we can start a project. So that's important to note, because if we're going to do one of these projects this year, I mean, we've got to get to our board meeting, and then we've got to wait till the next board meeting that I think they only introduce capital enabling legislation once a month at the county council, and then there's 60 days. So there's just a time process, just to let you know, a timeline.
I think to just jump back to something you just said, I think everybody is aware that there is no mechanism to getting turf on the field this summer.
Okay.
Like, that is not going to happen.
Okay.
Even in the best case scenario, even if we voted today, we would still have to do an RFP, and we'd have to figure out the state of the fields, and we'd have to figure out who's going to do it in. But, there's a limited amount of time in which you can do that project. And from a timing perspective, it can't happen this summer, even under best case funding scenario, which we are not in. So, right, everybody understands that is not possible. So I think we are talking about figuring out how to fund a longer term project. And I think Mrs. Henry and I are just talking about the same thing from a different perspective, like the details of how you do that. But yes, I am, and I think I heard them say last night, you don't have to be super specific with your CIP funding. You could just say, we're going to put this money in CIP funds for fields.
Yeah, turf fields, or fields, athletic fields, yep. I agree.
So I think that my suggestion then would be, if we're talking about around $200,000 in CIP, I don't know if they want to hear that we're going to match that from our fund. I think they want to hear from us that we're going to put something in. So I don't know how we
And I can
vote on
convey
that, or
that I can convey that to them, and they tend to watch our meetings, so they'll know that. And, you guys could determine the amount at a later point. You can determine at a later point how much you want to put in your FY26 ask. So I think for now, what we need to do, or I'm not clear if you're voting on this tonight or voting in November after we have more information.
My suggestion would be a vote tonight so that we can move to the council being able to do that. Because I think through all of our discussion, which is great discussion, it's come out clear what you want to move on, and then what you want to say we're going to phase in, and we'll have that information in the backdrop.
Do you feel comfortable voting on this tonight, board? Are there more questions that you have to ask or want to ask, or points that you'd like to make?
Well, Sarah, I've got one question. If we use the 1.5 that the council has allocated for this, and we use our 1.125, which is our capital funds that we were going to put into the
It's in our fund balance from FY24.
right, that comes to 2.625 million. Oh, we've got plenty of fund balance. That was what we're putting in from last year alone.
Well,
Yeah.
at this, oh, never mind, I'm confusing things. Go ahead.
Okay, so, moving on. If we had that much, we could do all of the projects except for the turf field, but we would have a little bit left over that we could apply to doing a study for it, where it goes, where it leads, how much it's actually really going to cost us. I'm sorry, I wasn't pushing my button. But would that be feasible?
Again, the money you're talking about is already in our fund balance. On July 1, that dropped to our fund balance. So it's our fund balance. So really what you're saying is you'd like to use an amount of fund balance equal to what we put into our fund balance last year. You're talking about that. And that's fine. That would require a budget amendment on our part. That's fine. That's doable.
Because it has to come from somewhere. 'Cause
Right.
These are important projects.
Right. I guess what my absolutely. My only thought is if we're not going to, well, if you want to do the turf field this summer, and that's possible, then we could do it that way. I do have, a little bit of concern about our FY26 budget. All those ESSER funds are gone. All the LEADS grants money are gone. They have propped us up.
I want to make sure, like, if we're also, like, because these are projects that are important, but we also haven't gotten into what our academics are going to look like. What are we doing there? And if we know that we're already going into that situation where we don't have as many grants, like, we may be tapping that fund balance significantly anyway to make sure that we're doing the things that we need to do academically for our students. But Debbie, what I thought I heard you say was that there would be money, you're not talking about doing the field right away. Is that that's what you just said, right?
We need to keep the lights on
Right.
and keep the kids comfortable
Right.
just to learn
Right.
before we do any of the other stuff.
Right. I mean, I think,
What I would suggest then is if you're not talking about using this money right now, is approve the projects that fit within the 1.5 million, and then at a point this spring, as we're wrapping up our budget discussions for next year, you make a decision. This is how much, at that point, you will see, do we need to use some of our fund balance just to balance our operating budget or to hit in some of our key objectives in FY26? Hopefully we don't, but keep in mind, we've been using ESSER and LEADS funds to buy a lot of technology and pay for a lot of software, and we've kind of shifted the positions. We knew that was coming, so we shifted those positions into our local budget. But there are other materials of instruction and things we've been using, and we've been using funds for. So a thought would be to wait until the spring, and we're looking at the FY26 picture as a whole, and at that point say, all right, we already have committed X amount of our 1.5 million FY25 capital funds toward those fields. We're going to put in another request to the county council for this amount toward an artificial field, and we're going to put up this amount from our fund balance, because you would have a better idea. I would have a better idea of if we're going to have some surplus from this year to help you make that decision.
Can I ask for clarification? So what you're suggesting is that tonight we make a vote on the total amount of the 1.5. So we will fund these particular projects within that, and then the excess we are choosing to put in CIP funds towards large-scale project A, B, whatever. But because what I heard is that they want to know what we are doing with the whole 1.5, like yesterday.
They'll be patient.
Yeah,
They'll
they didn't
be-
give us a deadline, but we
They'll-
know the process that they have to go through as well.
They'll be patient, and they said we're totally able to use those, like, let them know up till June of this year, but we've got about a 90-day waiting period from, we'll say, up to 90 days from when we make a decision to when we can actually use the funds. So that would time out this LED light replacement that, is happening and puts us in jeopardy with the high school lights. So if any projects we want to move on, we need to go ahead and talk to them about. And if the difference between what we say we want to move on and the 1.5 million, you can either say, all right, that's set aside for the turf field or set aside for Project X, or you can just say, just not commit to that at this point.
And we need a vote, correct? Okay.
Yeah.
Also, for clarification, we are removing the discussion around the field upgrade because we are going to move that into our maintenance budget, and you will come back to us with a budget transfer request to
Yes,
cover
and
that.
I don't think I'll need to do that immediately because we have available space in that category, but I will sometime in the not too distant future, come back
I just
to you
want to
with
be
that.
sure that by us not voting on it, it is still happening. So
If you're
that it-
telling me it's happening, and Mr. Schaefer will be moving forward.
And I would be remiss if I didn't mention all the students that came forward last year with Elgin's Army and basically begged us for that turf field. So I just would say that everybody needs to keep that in mind. That was her make-a-wish, and we did hear from a lot of students on that.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve funding the following projects out of the $1.5 million that was designated for capital funds for FY 24-25. The following projects are the auditorium light replacement at Easton High School for $817,321. The St. Michael's Middle High LED light replacement for $566,000. The remaining funds from the 1.5,
117,000 is remaining.
117,000 is to be set aside in a CIP fund towards athletic fields in Talbot County Public Schools.
And you don't need that to be specific to be artificial turf, just athletic fields in Talbot County. I think that's fine, actually.
I think that's what I heard last night, that it could be a very general,
I think so, yeah.
which allows for change along the way.
Yeah, I think that's, yep.
Motion's on the table.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. That was a very, very helpful discussion. Thank you, Sarah and Kevin, as always. Okay. Next up, we have the personnel report with Dr. Horsey.
Good evening again. I'm asking that the board approve the personnel report that was shared in closed session.
I make a motion to approve the personnel report as presented in closed session.
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next up, oh, it's Mrs. Jones again. Hello, with our monthly budget report.
We are on track with our budgeted revenues. You see that in the far right-hand column for revenues, we are, it appears under budget. We recognize those revenues as they come in the door. So we get a monthly draw from the county and a bi-monthly draw from the state. We are on track with that. In terms of our expenditures, this looks very different from the July and August financials I shared with you, as we would expect. Because our teachers and all of our 10-month employees, our bus drivers, our instructional assistants, got their first paychecks in the month of September, which then in that year-to-date obligation column encumbered their salaries for the rest of the year. So our available balance right now under expenditures is $12 million. That's down $44 million from what I reported last month because all of those salaries have kicked in, if you will. So we are within budget for all of our categories. And there are a couple line items within those overall categories where we're slightly overspent. But we're taking some steps. It'll probably involve a budget adjustment at some point. But overall, we're well within budget in all of our categories.
Any questions for Mrs. Jones this month? Okay, thank you so much. Next up is superintendent's report.
So good evening. I have for you, and I have it right here, the Yonder cell phone pouch that we will be piloting at Easton Middle School. This week is the week of communication to the families, the students, PTO organization. And December 2nd will be the launch date for that. So I think we had it at the work session, so those of you that weren't there are able to see it. And you could see there at the Maryland Association of Boards, myself, Dr. Thompson from Dorchester, and Dr. Simmons from Caroline County, who's already been using the pouch, again, all piloting. We presented at a session at MABE. So there's a picture of us there. And then 5 of the 7 members, as well as Ms. Eisenberg, our attorney, went to the Maryland Association Boards Conference. A lot of great sessions that took place over the time in Annapolis, an annual conference that takes place. So thoroughly got a lot of information during that time. Easton Homecoming, you heard from the presentation already, the homecoming parade that took place there, and you already heard that St. Michael's High School is coming up this weekend. Upcoming events, there is a list of all the things that are taking place. Additionally, I wanted to give an update as well before we move on to board member comments of the Maryland, we have our special ed pilot, or our special ed inclusion work that is taking place. And so the second meeting took place today with a team that's working on looking at inclusion practices with I want to get the correct, it's MCIE, which stands for the Maryland Coalition for Inclusive Education. So they did have their second meeting today. And they're going to do classroom observations. They're talking with staff members, what's happening currently right now, and they're being led by the Chief Executive Officer of that Maryland Coalition of Inclusive Education. And so in the coming months, we will have further presentations on the work that's taking place with that. Additionally, calendars that board members, we have hot off the press the calendar, so I just wanted to mention that, and I want to thank the team, Ms. Claggett, Ms. Gardner, for the work of going around collecting pictures and making sure, and Sodexo, which we have with us, partner with us, very, very important that they work together, and we are working together for this informative calendar that goes out. I want to thank also the student board members for sharing all that they're sharing. I mean, oftentimes, and I think we heard, and we always hear, more than just writing, arithmetic, and reading. There's a lot of things taking place here in the district, and so it was nice to see the community service that students are doing and all of the extracurricular activities that are happening in the district. And I believe that is all I have.
Thank you very much, Dr. P. All right, we're on to board members' remarks, and I'm going to start with Gabriella.
I don't have anything to say. Yeah, thank you.
Mrs. Howie.
I want to thank everyone who came out tonight and everyone who watched. I truly appreciated the public comment on band, and it's important. As someone who was in band from 5th grade to 12th grade, I can tell you the importance of it, the teamwork, the leadership, and they do say that kids that are involved in band are usually great math students. Also, I want to thank our board members for their amazing presentations tonight. It's always great to hear about the projects in the school and what they're doing in our community. Thank you to Sarah Jones and her amazing team, and congratulations on a clean audit. And I truly appreciated the opportunity to attend the MABE conference. Hearing from our state superintendent, Dr. Wright, was absolutely amazing. I was able to attend sessions on helping to improve our attendance, academic achievement as it relates to our students being college and career ready, and knowing that that starts in pre-K. It doesn't start when they get in high school. So thank you for that opportunity.
Mrs. Wheeler.
I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, and I want to thank our staff for all of the hard work that you do. What a great bunch of people, and I appreciate all that you do to keep us straight. And I don't think I've ever heard anyone thank each other, but I went to the forum at the Avalon and sat in the audience, and I was so proud of 2 of our board members. They were knowledgeable. They had done their homework. They showed how much they care about our kids. And I think next month is my last board meeting, but it just made me know that this board is going to be in good hands. And that's all.
Ms. Henry?
Well, Mary trying to make me cry and get all emotional. No, okay. So thank you to everyone who came out this evening, as well as everybody that's watching. Mary, I really appreciate it. I wasn't expecting that, so that caught me off guard. So thank you so much. I've appreciated serving with you and look forward to doing great work, continuing to do great work on the board. Thank you, Mr. Schaefer, for taking all of those field hits this evening. But we really do just want to make sure we're doing all we can to support our student athletes as well. That's super important. And then prioritizing all the other projects in the community. Thank you so much for public comment. I have a child who was in band. I have other relatives in band, so I enjoyed hearing about that and seeing those pictures. That was really nice. Also, thank you to Mrs. Jones on a clean audit, you and your team. Super impressive, all the information, all the data. And I also just wanted to say that October is Disability History and Awareness Month, as well as National Disability Employment Month. And so I just wanted to thank the county for taking the opportunity to celebrate disability as diversity and celebrate the significant contributions of individuals with disabilities, not only in Maryland, but in our country. So thank you so much for that. And I hope that everyone has a great night.
Mrs. Bridges?
First, I want to tell the girls I really loved your reports. They were very imaginative and fun, so thank you for that. And I want to take a minute to thank our county council for funding us the way they have. Their job is hard to make the funds available, and we're all in this together, and I just so appreciate their help. After hearing some of the reports from the other counties, we are so blessed in this county, and we all have very spirited conversations sometimes, but we get along very well, and our best interest is for our children, and I think that's what we're all here for. And I just want to say thank you, Dr. P. and Sarah. Oh, my God. I don't know how you do it, but thank you so much.
Ms. Dodson?
Going next to last, I feel like I can just say ditto, but I do thank you, Ms. Jones and Mr. Schaefer, for our spirited conversation on the capital improvement budget tonight. I know we all had a lot of thoughts, and it's a lot of work to bring it down to those items. So I appreciate you all for that, and my fellow board members for asking the questions.
I too could just say ditto. I've heard a lot. I won't say it. A lot of really great commentary from my fellow board members. I was very proud of all of us at MAPE. It was really nice to show up with a very strong female contingent. I like that. Girl power is pretty cool. I thank you very much, Kevin and Sarah. I know we throw a lot of curveballs at you. I know we ask a lot of probably very annoying questions. But at the end of the day, everybody in this room have, our students' best interests at heart, and it's just how we get there. And that's our jobs, to ask you annoying questions. So thank you for doing your job by fielding them very nicely. I'm proud of the work that this board is doing. We are a healthy community. Speaking of healthy, everybody please wash your hands and stay healthy. There's a lot of really nasty germs going around. So everybody stay safe and healthy out there, and look forward to seeing you all next month in November. Also, please don't forget to vote. Voting is November 5th. Everybody do your civic duty. And so that said, would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you very much.